Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tuku, Sherab, Dorje, a Lama in our Rime lineage, particularly the Kagyu and Nyingma lineage, a friend of many of my friends, disciple of the great Lamas that we also are fortunate to follow in the footstep of, whose pictures are here, too many to mention. He's a recognized reincarnation in the Tibetan lineage. He's an American from Montreal. You know what I mean.
Dual citizen.
Very dualistic citizen in the tradition. He's a good guy. His main teachers, Tuku Rinpoche, the 16th Buddha Karmapa, and Kala Rinpoche. He did 3-year retreat upriver, not at Sing Sing, but at Kaju Tupten Chuling, Lama Norla's Kala Rinpoche Center, 3-year retreat there. He's fluent in Tibetan, has translated for many Lamas, especially the great Lama Urgyen Kusum Lingpa, his root guru, a great Lama in Tibet who used to come to America and passed away about 2 years ago at his home monastery in Golok, Eastern Tibet. Tuku Sherab was with that Lama at his death, spent the last 12 years with that Lama, has translated him and with that Lama, the great Kusum Lingpa, Nyingma Dzogchen Master Kusum Lingpa, established the blazing mountain, blazing wisdom, blazing something, a lot of blazing wisdom center in upstate New York. About an hour or an hour and a half northwest of Woodstock, about 2.5 hours northwest of here in upstate New York. And he has written the book that I forgot to bring down as we were busy chatting and gossiping, that Drew is going to go up and get in my room. It's on the altar, the path strewn with bones and flowers, that he wrote his memoirs. He's a lot older than he looks. Meditation and yoga are good for you. His memoirs, his first book, he has published a book with Snow Lion before, a translation of the great C2 Rinpoche's comments on Mahamudra, on a text of Mahamudra. Was it the 9th Karmapa's Mahamudra?
Third Karmapa's.
The 3rd Karmapa's Song of Mahamudra, the Kaju Munlam, I think. Whatever it's called, Chagchen Munlam, Song of Mahamudra. This is his first big book, his memoirs. I recommend it to you. A Path Strewn with Bones and Flowers. It's very forthcoming about his upbringing, his dreams, his visions, his aspirations, his going to Vassar College up the road, his law school and law background, and work in the world with corporations, being made a Tibetan Lama and throned in a seat in a monastery in Tibet, traveling and translating for Lamas as I did, and being backstage of what's really going on and understanding more and more as we're all working on what works and what doesn't work here in the West and in the modern world, how to bring this timeless wisdom forth and transmit it, teach and transmit it in the modern world for the benefit of one and all. So, Sherab, Tuku Sherab Dorje, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for that kind introduction. I'll begin with a prayer in Tibetan, so please don't mind me. You can make your own aspirations as you wish. Lama dong control Rinpoche Namba Samche Daso Samchen Tam Jeje La Chusu Jor Jinji Lab Dusur Chulam De Jor Jinji Lab Dusur Lam Chuba Sarwa Jinji Lab Dusur Chuba Yeshe Jarwa Jinji Lab Dusur Nama Arya Lai Kedan Randa Jinke Jrom Dadami Kenandan Jawa Kanji Dragi Jizam Barar Tamje Ketu Dagi Chetendo Semjen Namji Zambadam Loye Jerajida or Chechon Tamantaba Yeji Kolo Kordusu Chasarwadan Jin Shabadan Jesu Irangurjin Zawa Yigi or Junse Dagi Jizaba Tamje Zobe Janju Jimbo. It's very nice to join you here today from my wintry retreat in the Catskills to your not quite so wintry retreat along the Hudson River. a beautiful sunny winter day. I had a nice drive here. Thank you again to Lama Surya for reaching out, connecting, and inviting me to speak with you today. I'm happy to be here. Let me just ask, just to get a sense more of who all of you are. First, by a show of hands, how many of you are doing an intensive Buddhist meditation retreat for the very first time, if anyone? Okay, just a minority. And how many of you, if you add up all of your experiences in life so far, have done cumulatively 1 year or more of intensive Buddhist retreats? About the same number. Okay, so about half at the far ends and half in between. Good, a very diverse group. Well, I'll try to say things that are of some interest or relevance to everyone in the group, if possible. In Buddhism, we talk about 3 types of learning. The most basic type of learning is kind of information gathering, Sherab in Tibetan. What we learn or understand from listening, from seeing, from hearing, just at the very basic stage. It's where we first hear about Buddhism or about great lamas or about the benefits of meditation. And then the second type of learning is reflection, where we take that information and we analyze it, we mull it over, we see what makes sense, what doesn't make sense to us, what's useful, what we can apply in our own experience. And then at some point, armed with those 2 types of learning, we can make a decision either to go on a first meditation retreat for some of you, or to continue and go deeper with meditation practice as part of life for some others. And for the new people, I'll say, when you just have the idea of meditation, some understanding about it, you think, okay, I'll go into retreat and it will be a great chance to get away and relax and find some peace and stillness and sanity, and it will be like a vacation almost from the stress of everyday life. Or maybe other people told you, oh, you're so lucky, you're going on a Buddhist retreat, you'll be so peaced out and it'll be wonderful. I can't wait to see you when you get back and hear all about it. Well, for those of you for whom this is the first time, you know it's not exactly like that. Because when you go on retreat, guess who comes with you? Your own mind. And your own mind has its own mind. Your own mind has a certain way of doing things, has its patterns, its likes and dislikes, its hopes and fears and expectations, and none of those get parked at the door when you come in to sit on your cushion. So you bring all of your mind with you into meditation, not just that one part of your mind that made the decision, I'm going to meditate. That's just one of many little minds all competing for attention. There is the attention part of your mind, and then there are all the voices in that mind competing for that attention, right? That's what you learn in meditation. I want to talk to you today about the meaning of a particular verse that we chant, in fact, as an offering for eating meals. We can call it the food prayer or a food prayer. And it's very short, and the last part of it says, may all these sentient beings enjoy the well-prepared food of samadhi. And this is very meaningful. Of course, samadhi means concentrated state of mind or stillness. It can mean many different things depending upon the type of meditation or the level of meditation, but most basically, samadhi means a concentrated state of attention or awareness, non-distracted mind, undisturbed mind. So we make this prayer of offering that by eating delicious food, may all sentient beings at the same time enjoy the well-prepared food of samadhi. And this is very significant for a number of reasons. There's a lot of meaning to unpack here. In Tibetan, when we talk about eating or taste or food, it's meant to convey the sense of something that's very personal and direct. Of all of the different senses we have, hearing and sight and smell and so on, it's touch and taste that are considered the most direct, most personal or private or interior. Like when we talk about having a profound meditation experience, the image that we use is of like a mute person tasting molasses for the first time. They have the taste of something, but they can't even describe what it's like. So that's an example. Or in the prayer in the Kagyu lineage, it's called the Dorje Changtungma, the lineage prayer in the Kagyus. They talk about the essence of mind, and in the Kagyu Mahamudra tradition, the direct experience of mind's nature is again described in terms of the sense of taste. First you have concentration, and then you have simplicity, and then you have one taste. One taste means you recognize the single essence of all experiences. And we'll talk about that a bit later, and you'll hear more and more about that the more you practice meditation and study with Lama Surya. So the sense of taste, very personal, very powerful. We talk about the benefit to ourselves and all beings of experiencing the taste, the food, the delicious, well-prepared food of samadhi, not just any food. So let's think for a second about what to contrast that with. What is our mental diet before we come into a meditation retreat when we're very busy? Well, our diet is the fast junk food of stress, busyness, of hyperactivity, of overstimulation, of too many thoughts running through our minds about the future. All of these emotions, I call that the fast junk food of the busy, non-meditating mind. That's what we can contrast the delicious, well-prepared food of samadhi with. What are our minds consuming most of the time? Our minds, when not in a state of meditation, whether we're here or anywhere else, our minds are consuming what seems most attractive and desirable to our senses and to our thoughts, to our emotions in any moment, rejecting everything that seems non-attractive, undesirable, painful, unpleasant, or not giving a hoot because it seems neither particularly good or bad. That's a kind of a Canadian Midwest expression, not giving a hoot. Okay. I didn't want to use a bad word, so I said hoot. That's what our minds ordinarily do, and that diet, of course, makes us sick and unhealthy mentally. So coming onto a meditation retreat is like when you when you have an unhealthy lifestyle and a bad diet, eating junk food, you might say, enough of this, I'm going to go to a health spa and spend time like detoxing and it's taking all these herbal wrap treatments and learning how to improve my diet and getting massage and acupuncture and getting diet counseling and learning a good exercise regime, and I'll try to apply those principles to change my lifestyle after I've gone through that cleansing or detox process. So meditation retreat is very similar to that, except it happens mainly with the mind, but having immediate impact on our whole being at the same time, on our bodies as well. Mental stress creates physical stress creates mental stress. We are embodied human beings. We have a mind-body continuum, so we can't separate them. So whatever good we do for our minds, learning to feed our minds better, the benefit of that is felt with our bodies as well, and it's felt by everyone around us, as well as we behave differently, more openly, calmly, kindly, and so on. So we learn to come on retreat and prepare ourselves, prepare our minds to savor the food of samadhi. I guess a bit more first about the mind that comes along with us even after we decide, I am going to meditate, I am going to bring my mind to a state of stillness, peace. The mind that is accustomed to subsisting on the junk food diet, that craves that diet of a lot of thoughts and stimulation and sensation. In Tibetan, we call that mind the mind of nyunmo. Sanskrit is kleshas. In English, I translate that often as mental disturbances, or the mind that likes to be agitated and disturbed in one way or another. It feels alive. In Tibetan, there's these two syllables, nyun and mong. Nyun means something like temporary insanity, and mong means not seeing that that's what is happening to you. So when we live under the power of nyun mongs, under the power of this self-blinded temporary insanity, then we don't see the harm that we're doing to ourselves through indulging every craving and getting angry at everything that threatens the satisfaction of our craving. We think that the world simply delivers things to us, and it's our job to kind of pick and choose, to accept and reject, and try to make things work out as well as possible in every moment. There's always this strategy and negotiation going on with our experience. But what we learn about this mind in a meditation retreat, well, really we learn, or should learn, two fundamental things about the mind by sitting down and simply looking at our experience, as I'm sure you've been taught to do. The first thing we learn about the mind is that, unique among all things in the universe, mind has the basic quality of knowing itself. Mind is the only event or phenomena or field or whatever in the universe that has this unique quality of knowing itself. Mind is that which knows itself. In Tibetan, that's called rangrik, self-aware. So when we feel an emotion, we not only feel the emotion, but we know that we are feeling the emotion, right? Rangrik. In the nyunmong, the disturbed state of mind, we implicitly believe without questioning that all of the pleasant and unpleasant experiences of life are simply imposed upon us from the world. That's the basic orientation or framework. And that's why we're always trying to figure it out better or negotiate it more cleverly or more skillfully. We think good and bad experiences simply happen to us, and then we have to deal with them as best we can. We don't use our awareness to look at our own minds and see just how primary is the role of our own minds in even shaping the sense of what is pleasant and unpleasant, of what is desirable and what is undesirable. We don't think, this is anger in my mind. We think, that person made me angry. That thing made me angry, right? And because we think the world is simply doing these things to our own minds, and our minds are simply passive receptors of these experiences, then we always blow things out of proportion. So it's, you always make me angry that way, or you never do this no matter how many times I ask you, and everything is taken to some ridiculous extreme. So this mind that is caught up in these emotional responses that it believes are just coming from outside never gets the balance right. Its judgment is severely impaired. That's why I say temporary insanity. There's no perspective. Everything looks too big, it's up too close, or everything looks too small, it's too far away. It's never right there where you can see it sharply and clearly. And of course, as you know, the mind is also so busy chasing this and that, going so fast, that there's almost no space or no time, seemingly, within the mind to catch up with itself and say, whoa, what actually just happened? By the time you stop to think what actually just happened within my mind, there's something else that distracts it, something else that pulls it yet somewhere else. So this is the mind of disturbances, the disturbed state of mind that includes passion, aggression, indifference, jealousy, pride, and you name it. So mind is very funny. On the one hand, its quality, its basic quality that can never be removed, is that it knows itself. At the same time, mind has this terribly bad habit of forgetting or losing sight of itself constantly under the barrage of different perceptions and thoughts and experiences and memories that just pull it in another direction. So the first thing you see in meditation is when you say, oh, I got lost, I was supposed to just be doing this, maybe watching the breath or just being receptive and not allowing the mind to stick or focus anywhere. You say, oh, I got lost, I got distracted. What does that actually mean? What happens when the mind is distracted? Does something come from outside and grab the mind and force it to go somewhere else? It can't happen, right? It's that something popped up in the experience, in the field of experience of your own awareness, that fooled awareness into believing that that happened outside the mind, somewhere else, that it simply came to your mind. When someone says something to you, you have a memory of someone saying something and it was funny, then you laugh. The person's not here. They're not saying anything to you. The entire event is happening within your own mind, but in that moment, you find it funny because you actually feel as if that person is talking to you. You are not aware that you are sitting on a cushion in a meditation hall. In that moment, I promise you. It's like being in a dream state where you have all of these emotional reactions to people and events and places that your mind has completely fabricated, right? Or like watching a movie or a video that you get completely sucked into and you kind of really enjoy it, right? You like getting lost and having all of your emotions stimulated, and you enjoy the suspension of belief, as they call it. Well, that's the suspension of belief that you're trying to reverse in meditation. So sometimes I have the thought about myself, oh, I've spent so many years practicing meditation. If I add up all the hours, it's like some astronomical number. It's ridiculous. Then I think, going back to my childhood, how many hours I spent watching TV and daydreaming in school or playing sports with my friends, and I'm sure my meditation hours have not caught up yet. So mind is by nature aware of itself, and yet when mind becomes accustomed or habituated to looking at all of the experiences within its own space as happening somewhere else, then that energy or that force becomes very strong. Tuku Urjin, our common teacher, used to say it's like if you take a piece of paper and you roll it up very tightly and you tie a rubber band around it and you put it on a shelf for many years. And then you forget it's there, and then one day someone reminds you, oh, you remember you have that very important scroll. What did it say? And you say, I can't remember, let's check. And so you take off the rubber band and you spread it out on the table. What happens when you lift your hands and let go? It goes. That's the power of habituation in our minds. There's nothing there except I don't know what you call it in scientific terms, the kinetic power or something of the paper that is used to being folded in a particular way. Our minds are used to chasing after our own experiences as if they are coming from somewhere else and losing sight of its own nature as the awareness, as the experiencer of everything. Everything we experience, and on this neuroscientists and Buddhists agree, everything we experience through and with and in our own minds. We never experience something that is beyond the sphere or domain of our own minds. And yet, we constantly feel as if we are doing just that. Even though mind knows itself, mind's habit is to lose sight of itself, to lose track of itself, to forget its own nature as awareness. So in meditation, we're trying to prepare ourselves to enjoy the delicious food of samadhi. And that preparation, which we can also call training or purification or many other terms, that training is reorienting the mind once more to remember more and more what it actually is, what the nature of its own experience actually is, and not to get so caught up and bothered and disturbed by whatever happens. And that nourishes the mind and it nourishes the body. That's how we experience the well-prepared food of samadhi. But what happens? We sit down on the cushion and there's the mind that says, okay, now I'm going to just follow the instruction. What's the is there one instruction you're working with now? One primary instruction for your sitting meditation?
Rest in open awareness.
Okay, rest in open awareness. Okay. Now I'm just going to rest in open awareness. Someone decides that, right? There's a voice in your mind. It's just, you say, okay, I'm just getting started. I need that as kind of my start button. Now I'm going to rest in open awareness. And it works for a moment, maybe, and then you think, did it or didn't it? And that's already a different mind, right? And then something happens in the room that irritates you. Oh, that person has got that sniffle again, or my knee, I can never find exactly the right position to put it in without it, acting cranky in this way or whatever. Because the thought, I am going to meditate now, has its certain power, but it's not the boss, it's not the ruler of all of the other thoughts that pop up into the mind. So meditation, even though we pretend it is in the beginning, meditation is not about setting up the I want to meditate thought as the boss of all the other thoughts. That's not enough. That can get you started, but what is it that remembers more and more and more how to simply remain in open, spacious presence, in open awareness? What is it that remembers to do that? It's the awareness itself, the basic quality of mind itself. And so meditation is learning all of these tricky techniques to allow or encourage the basic openness of mind, the aware openness that is already its nature, to manifest or to reveal itself or to be present. So it's a lot about remembering that you forgot, and not so much about forgetting to remember. I don't know how to end that sentence. So, again, in the Kagyu tradition, in the prayer of the lineage, it says, the essence of thoughts is Dharmakaya. Basically, that means the essence of thoughts is open awareness. So even when thoughts are happening, the awareness, the basic nature of our minds doesn't go anywhere. It's still there. It's always there. In fact, it's because we are aware. This sentence means it's because we have this basic quality, this cognizant or knowing or aware quality of mind. It's because of that that we can have thoughts at all. The reverse is not true. The essence of awareness is not thoughts. That's why you can't simply have a thought that says, I'm going to meditate now, and then you're done. If that thought were the essence of your mind, you would be done. But it's just a thought as another expression of the nature, which is awareness. So again, the essence of thoughts is awareness, but the essence of awareness is not thoughts. So you can encourage and cultivate this quality of spacious awareness through using different meditation techniques, and the thoughts will take care of themselves. When you're not continually losing sight of awareness and investing your attention in those thoughts, taking them to be real, taking them to be a description of something that's happening in some real world outside your mind or as being sent to you from the world. When you remember, when you allow awareness more and more to express itself as that essence, that nature of your mind, then the thoughts lose their power. You don't really have to worry too much about them. It's the awareness that gets cultivated more and more. The thoughts will therefore deal with themselves. But that takes training. It takes repetition. It takes changing the orientation from this to this. Right? Looking at awareness with awareness. Well, who's looking and what are they seeing? No one's looking, nothing is seeing, and yet awareness is still there. It doesn't require you to make anything up. So that's what we learn through meditation practice. And the more we do that, the more accustomed we become to relaxing and resting in that simple nature of mind through meditation practice, then the more and more we enjoy the food of samadhi. We prepare ourselves for that feast. So what is the food of samadhi that we enjoy? It's not the fast food diet of mind chasing its tail everywhere. T-A-L-E, always telling a story to itself about what's happening and what it means and what to do about it. We always want to be making up a story. Now it's going well, now it's going badly. Again, remember what I said before about the lack of perspective that we have when we are responding to our own experience through accepting and rejection, through hope and fear. If we sit down and things go well in a meditation session, we think, okay, now I've got it. Right? Or things go terribly badly, we think all this stuff is happening, the mind is turbulent, we can't settle down for a moment. We think, I'll never learn this, it's just not going to work, my mind is... Whatever is happening in that moment is completely blown out of proportion. We're always making things too big a deal, or we're discounting them too much, downplaying them too much, because we're so fixated on the reality of whatever thoughts and experiences present themselves to our minds in any moment, and we're not aware that our mind is just making that all up. Right? When we do that less and less, and we just leave things be, we use every experience as a reminder to simply be aware. Say, oh, I just got angry about something that happened 5 years ago. Once you've had that thought, you've already remembered to be aware of the anger as anger and let it go. That's how it works, or that's one way that it works. So the more you train yourself that way to remember and remember and remember and remember, and then just leave it be, then the more you enjoy the food of samadhi. This food is nourishing, again, not just for your mind, but for your body, for your whole being as well. If you make a good effort at doing a meditation retreat like this, I guess you have a couple more days to go. Then at the end of the retreat, you'll have a chance maybe to socialize a little bit with everyone here, and I promise you, I've been doing this a long time, you'll feel very warm and kind towards everyone, pretty much. Oh, so glad to have shared this experience with you. And it's not because you actually got to know each other on a personal level so much in a retreat, and it's not because you have this idea that you've shared some beautiful experience, but it's because you're just present and relaxed in a way that you were not when you first came in the door the first day of the retreat. So you see that this nourishing food of samadhi, the benefits of that extend from the simple act of paying attention to what's happening in your own mind, extends from there through your body, through your experience. It extends to all the people you interact with as well. So meditation, the benefits, the nourishing power of samadhi reaches everywhere. That's why we do this. That's what the benefit really is. And so you can get a sense of stillness in your body. When your mind is very busy, especially tense or fixated or grasping at something very strongly, the next thing you can see is that when the mind is stuck or the mind is running around, the eyes are fixated or the eyes are darting around. Even in dreams, we know that when people are watching things happen in dreams, their eyes are moving around. The eyes are moving around. On the next level in the body, you can see there's different sensations of tightness or dead spots where you don't feel anything, or you feel heat in certain places, or rushes of heat or cold, or you, on a more subtle level, you can feel energy rising in the body or sinking in your body, or like there's no energy there at all and you could just die at any moment. All of these things happen. Why? They happen because of what's happening in part, because of the habit of what's happening in the mind. So what happens in the mind strongly affects the body and on the level of the organs, the glands, everything. All the thoughts in your mind, the emotions, especially the tightness, it affects the health of every system in your entire body. So when you relax into mental samadhi, your body gets nourished as well. The tensions get released in different ways. You digest your food better. You sleep better. You think more clearly. You don't get as agitated by whatever happens. All of those things, any doctor will tell you, are good for your body. So in that way too, you experience the food or the nourishing or rejuvenative power of samadhi. In the Nyingma tradition, I've been talking about the Kajus a lot. In the Nyingma, the old translation school, one of our great masters, his name was Longchenpa, he composed some very important treatises to our tradition which talk about the quality of ngalso. And ngalso means recovering from weariness, the sense of rejuvenation or restoration, coming to a sense of very deep well-being. It's sometimes called profound ease or the state of profound relaxation. That's what meditation brings. That's the food of samadhi. When the body is freed and relaxed from all of those accumulated tensions and worries and pains and bad mental dietary habits as well as physical dietary habits, then the energy, talking about more advanced levels of Buddhist practice now, the energy flows more freely. You can feel like your body weighs nothing, like you could just float up into the air. The energy flows freely. When the energy flows freely, the mind becomes incredibly clear. All of that energy that gets burned up thinking about all this useless stuff, that energy now can be used for other things, literal energy. So your mind feels more refreshed and awake, and it stays, the attention stays where you put it. And if you think of His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, you can hold his image in your mind in spectacular detail for as long as you want. And it's not through struggling and strain and from some kind of powerful exertion, but it's from profound relaxation and ease and refreshment and the presence of that powerful mental energy that's not being squandered on other useless things. That's also the food of samadhi. And then on the most subtle level, the food of samadhi is samadhi itself. The food of samadhi is samadhi. What nourishes awareness except awareness? Right? If mind's basic quality is to know itself, is to be self-aware, then the most rarefied or finest, purest essence of food of samadhi is simply awareness resting within itself. That is the state of profound ease that Longchenpa was referring to. It's a very high level of attainment in Dzogchen, in the great perfection tradition. So I've been talking for about 45 minutes, and I think I've said mainly what I wanted to say about meditation as experience, experiential learning, something you can only learn by doing it, not by reading any amount of material or having it described to you or watching other people do it. It's working with your own personal experience. What is the test or the measure for whether you are becoming a good cook of samadhi? Whether you're learning how to prepare that food well or not? Well, remember I said the opposite of that, the opposite diet is this fast food diet, the junk fast food diet of all the other thoughts and emotions that we invest all this energy and belief in. So if you see a true reduction in your own life in those kinds of disturbances in how you respond or react to situations, then it means you are mastering the culinary art of samadhi. You are making some progress. If you don't see that, then it's time to check back in with your teacher and see what might be going wrong. People can say, oh, I've been meditating for 20 years and I've not seen anything. This stuff doesn't work. It's all BS. What is that 20 years? Is it 24 hours a day of resting in the nature of mind? And no. It means maybe someone spent 1 hour a day, some but not all days, over the course of 20 years, setting aside that time to sit down and slow down their thoughts maybe a little bit, and then maybe get a little sleepy and then distracted, and then seeing if the time is up yet or not, and then, well, maybe I actually need to finish a little early today because I forgot I have that meeting and I ought to look good for that meeting, so I better shave one more time, or whatever the thought is. Remember, this quality of awareness, this self-awareness, it's like self-honesty. It's like dealing with your own mind and your own experience in a very honest way, not blowing things out of proportion, not discounting or disregarding them. When you believe the thought that you have something better to do in that moment than finish your meditation session, then you're not meditating. You're buying into that distorted thought or belief that there's something going on outside your mind that is more important than your mind simply cultivating its own natural quality. So that's where this person, this hypothetical person in my example, is going wrong. If you do that for 20 years or 200,000 years, probably nothing will change, because the basic point is being missed. So I'll leave you with a recommendation and encouragement to use the practices that you learn here under the wise and experienced tutelage of Lama Surya Das, to use that in your lives as best you can, and especially to be honest about it with yourselves, to see what's working and what's not working, not to get caught up in all of these judgments and maybe self-criticism or fantasies about how great it's all going to turn out, but being very realistic and very honest about your practice day to day, hour to hour, moment to moment, and see where you're messing up and see where you're not messing up, and take stock of that and touch base with your teacher or your teachers and use this incredibly valuable skill to benefit yourselves in your lives and to benefit everyone you come into contact with. So thank you, and I will take questions in the remaining time, if there are any.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful words. They are being penetrated slowly, I hope. My question has to do with, can you talk about meditating in the present moment, you know, on a 24-hour basis, how you could describe it?
When else would you propose to meditate other than in the present moment?
Thank you.
I'm curious.
Oh, that was a wonderful talk.
1 second.
I'm sorry.
Repetition, habit, training. The whole Buddhist path is about training. We trained ourselves to lose sight of our own experience and to mistake its nature, to have wrong beliefs. We believe that things don't exist when they sort of do, and we believe that things do exist when they sort of don't. Our perspective is all warped. How do we change that? We use the basic technique over and over and over until we effect some kind of reorientation. So there is no shortcut, there is no other secret method. It's just to remember and repeat, and to remember and repeat. Because your mind's nature simply is to know itself, there is nothing at any moment, day or night, that prevents you from meditating. Now, you might want to throw things at me for saying that, because it seems ridiculous to some of you, maybe. There is fundamentally nothing that prevents you from meditating at any moment in which you have experience. Let's leave aside deep sleep, that's for another day. But if you're dreaming, if you're daydreaming, if you're working, cooking, going to the bathroom, whatever you're doing, there is nothing imposed upon your mind like some kind of, tool, like a wrench, that's pulling your awareness and preventing it from manifesting its own nature as knowing itself. There is fundamentally no obstacle to meditating in every moment other than the bad habit of forgetting to do it. That's what you work with. Okay, next.
I'd be curious, when you yourself become frazzled, sort of on the spot you become frazzled, I'd be curious about what kind of, what your thought processes would be at the time to become unfrazzled.
The first thing to do is to notice that you are frazzled, rather than think that something else is causing you to be frazzled and thinking about that thing. Bringing it back to your own experience. So if you work and your idiot boss yells at you, then if you're frazzled and you're busy thinking about what kind of person that boss is, then you remain frazzled. If you take the moment to pause and recognize, oh, I am frazzled, forget about what the boss did or didn't do or said or didn't say, and what kind of history, what kind of story I tell myself about that and what it means and what he must think of me, etc., etc. Dropping that whole narrative, just look at the fact, the experience of being frazzled. That is the starting point to breaking the habit, to changing your response to that situation. Of course, it's only the first step. Then you apply whatever meditation technique you have learned to work with that awareness of that experience of frazzledness happening in you. And if it's a very, very strong habit, a very powerful reaction pattern, you might have to chip away at it very slowly and patiently, like a great sculptor working with a block of granite, right? And if it's weaker, then it will go away or loosen its power more quickly and more easily. But that's the basic task, and that's always the task. Okay? All right.
Is there any explanation as to why our minds that are so aware take on these habits? Why we become confused? Is there some?
That is the question of questions. You can read thousands of years of Buddhist metaphysical treatises about the original fall from grace, you can say, which is how does awareness, whose nature is simply to know itself, forget? How does it forget itself and why? And there's all kinds of fancy answers that happen, but none of them are going to help us at all. All that's going to help us is to remember to remember. But, you know, they say things like, mind, because it has this, not only this nature of awareness, but this, at the same time, this expressive capacity, the capacity or energy to manifest to itself in any variety of forms or as any type of experience. Somehow mind can shift its focus, as I was saying earlier, and mistakenly grasp onto those displayed experiences or phenomena as happening outside itself, rather than being its own display or its own expression or its own radiance. So instead of seeing that anger is coming from our own minds, we are looking out into some imagined world beyond our minds for that thing that imposed that anger on us, that made it happen. The you made me angry or it made me angry. So it's a matter of orientation. And then it's a matter of reorientation in the training. But knowing where we screwed up in the first place doesn't change the remedy that we have to apply in order to remember that nature as it actually is.
What are some techniques, if you please, that you could offer us to help us to remember on a moment-by-moment basis in our ordinary lives out there to stay in awareness? What are some of the things that you have found most helpful?
What do you find helpful in your life when you have to remember something and you don't want to forget?
I hold it in my awareness. I don't know the answer to that, actually.
Do you write something on the fridge, or do you keep a calendar, or do you ask someone, will you remind me, or will you call me at 7 o'clock and make sure I'm awake so I don't miss that thing? Do you do any of those kinds of things?
I do have a calendar.
I mean, I'm giving you some examples of what people tend to do. The point of all of those little tricks is to try to get themselves at some future moment in time to remember something that they need to do. So take all those little tricks and use them right now. Whatever works for you. There's no secret method that I use that I can guarantee will work for you. Maybe remembering your mother's face always reminds you to be present. Maybe remembering some beautiful, calming piece of music lets you let go of some other emotion that is upsetting your mind. As endlessly creative as our minds are at imagining all these different things, there are at the same time endless creative methods we can devise as suits our own life experience to help us remember, to help us remember to simply be aware of our experience in the moment as experience in the moment, happening in and to our minds, rather than simply imposed upon us from the world. So experiment and see what works for you, because if I've never met you before, as far as I recall. If I just tell you, try this, and then you go home tomorrow and you try it and it doesn't work right away, and you'll say, oh, that guy. And then you don't know me, I don't know you, you can't call me up and complain, and I can't tell you why you didn't use the method properly. And sorry, I'm not giving you easy answers.
I wonder if there's space in the remembering for a sense of humor in terms of being kind to yourself and trying to, you know, think of things that bring you some sense of joy as you remember, so that it'll be something that you then, you know, you're not beating yourself. Oh God, I forgot again, you know.
I agree.
So,
I agree. Because joy, that sense of joy, goes hand in hand, right, with the sense of openness or spaciousness or relaxation. Of course, we laugh more and more easily when we're feeling relaxed and calm and spacious. It's not that we're zoned out on the one hand or locked in on the other. I read this blog on the New York Times somewhere about a year ago, someone writing about their experience with mindfulness practice as they understood it. And it was horrible. I couldn't imagine doing that, let alone teaching it to other people. Because it was this kind of mindfulness where instead of paying attention to whatever's happening, you're just busy telling yourself, just be mindful, just be mindful, just be mindful, just be mindful. And there's no flavor or relaxation or space or joy at all in your experience. And this woman who wrote this said her friends were killing her, saying, you've got to stop this stuff. We can't even talk to you anymore. You're no fun at parties. We can't invite you over for dinner. You know, what happened to that old person who we really loved and enjoyed? So then she thought, maybe there's something wrong with this meditation technique. You know? Yeah.
I was wondering if you could tell us some stories about Kusan Lingpa or Lama Norla or Tuku Urgyen Rinpoche and your experiences with them.
Does it have to be a funny story? No? How much time do we have, Lama?
Time for a commercial break. A word from our sponsor, Blazing Wisdom Institute, a path strewn with flowers and bones, all about Rinpoche's teachers and in Tibet and here. I much recommend it to you.
Okay,
But he'll tell us a few stories. He doesn't need this. I just needed to mention this to you because I want, you know, people who like these things to read this.
I'll make you a deal, or I'll propose a deal, and then I'll tell you a story that's not in the book. And it includes Lama Surya, actually. I don't know if he'll remember when I tell the story, maybe we'll see. So here's the deal. Blazing Wisdom, you Google Blazing Wisdom or go to blazingwisdom.org. You buy the book, you like it, I'm very happy my purpose in writing it is served. You don't like it, you send me an email, I'll give you a full refund. But if you like it and you find something valuable in it and you don't apply for the refund, then you have to recommend it to 3 other people. My teacher was the best negotiator you've ever seen. You have no idea. He always got what he wanted. Almost. You had to be really tough not to give in. So here's the story. And it's just kind of a thoughtful story. give you reason for reflection. There's no big punchline at the end. But it goes back to the first time when I met Lama Surya Das, which was in Nepal, when, this is mentioned in the book, when he was, among other things, collecting stories from different teachers to include in his first book about great teaching stories or great lessons from the stories that lamas tell when they teach. And we were together at Kanying Monastery in Bodhanath, and I was scheduled to go see Tulku Urgyen, who was staying down at that main monastery in Bodhanath at the time, and Lama Surya wanted to see him as well, and there was one other person who had been waiting some time to meet Tulku Urgyen, and his name was Lodro Dorje Holmes. He was the Vajracharya within Trungpa Rinpoche's organization, which was called Vajradhatu then, before it was Shambhala. And Vajracharya means he was kind of an important guy in that organization. Dorje Lopun in Tibetan, it means, in theory, he was in charge of how to perform all of the advanced tantric rituals, to making sure all of their students knew how to do things properly and all had an organized plan and curriculum to follow and so on. So he had requested a meeting with Tulku Urgyen to also ask him some questions. So as it turned out, the three of us went upstairs and had an audience, a private audience with Tulku Urgyen. And Lodro Holmes asked Tulku Urgyen, you know, if Vajrayana Buddhism is so great, how come so few people in the West, he meant, are interested in it? If it's the best, shouldn't it be the most popular? I mean, if it's that profound and powerful and swift, as you guys are always saying, why is it, you know, so few people want to learn Tibetan Buddhism? There's so many more people practicing Zen or, you know, Vipassana meditation or Namrengi Kyoho or whatever that is. And so that was his question, and for some reason it had been really bothering him. And Tulku Urgyen laughed, as usual, and he said, let me explain it to you this way. Let's say you're the king and you're running a whole country, right? I said, okay. You're a king and you're running a whole country and you've got this policy that you want to implement that is supposed to benefit everyone, whether they're rich or poor or educated or non-educated, and you've got to sell your program to the people. You've got to explain it to them in a very clear and simple way that, you know, will get your point across, and you know, people will understand and they'll be able to follow whatever policy, you know, you're implementing. He said, that's like the basic foundation of Buddhism. That's like the, whether you call it Hinayana or Theravadan or called the general schools of Buddhism. Just, you know, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, just, you know, lay it out in a very kind of systematic, clear way that everyone can understand and follow. So then the king, in his mind, he has this policy and he's, you know, figuring out how to put it across to the people. So where does he go but to his council of ministers and close advisors? And he says, you know, this is what I want to do for the benefit of the people. You know, here's what I'm actually trying to accomplish. I can't say it in those terms because people won't appreciate or get it, but, you know, help me figure out what is the way to do this. Let's come up with the way to explain this policy to everyone. But here's what's really on my mind. So you guys and gals, my close advisors, you understand what I'm really thinking here. You can help me state this as public policy. So what the king says to his ministers already is somewhat more private, maybe more sophisticated than what he says to the world at large. So Lodro Holmes says, okay, I'm with you so far. You're kind of saying, Mahayana, we call it the Mahayana Buddhism, which talks about emptiness and talks about the four immeasurable qualities and so on, is not as much for everyone as the basic teachings of Buddhism. And Tuku Origin said, wait, I'm not finished. The king has finished his meeting with the council of ministers and advisors, comes to the end of his workday, goes back into the palace, goes back to his bedroom, gets into bed with the queen. So then it's just the king and the queen alone together in bed at night. The person he trusts most in the world, he knows better than anyone, the person who knows him and his intention better than anyone, then he can really say what he's thinking to that one person in that unique situation. That's Vajrayana Buddhism. So we were fortunate enough, maybe some of you are also fortunate enough, to learn Vajrayana Buddhism that way, the way it's intended. Learning it some other way is very difficult. Teachers who come and go in the night, giving profound empowerments, telling you, okay, here's the essence of your mind, $50 please at the door. I don't think so. Sorry. That's Tulku Urgent's story. I'm just agreeing with him. So thank you. Sunam di tamche zibanye tobne nye pe dranam pamje shinche gana chi balon trupai sipe sole drowa drowar sho jampar pavo jitar jampa dan kuntu zampo de ande jinte te da kunji jesu da lo jinge wa de da tamje ratu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche. I'm going to teach tonight, so I'll pass on a couple stories that I read in your book. Like my favorite one that I remember that I'll tell you now just because it's quick, also to tease him, because he's very much into money, as you can tell, being a lawyer and probably Jewish. Then, you know, there's a story about Tuku Origin and money. Tuku Origin Rinpoche used to live way up above Kathmandu Valley in Nagi Gampa, at his hermitage there. And I remember that every morning his grandchildren used to come in their little yellow galoshes and raincoats because it was monsoon season practically all the time in Nepal. And he would each give them like a few paisa, like 10 cents, 20 cents, they're really little, so they could get some sweets on the way to school or at lunchtime. And he was such a great old master. But the real point was they would come in every day to see their grandfather before they went to school. And he would have, you know, it was for him too, of course, a moment with them. And so Tuku Sherab, I don't know how old he was at this time, but even younger than he is now, he was there, and I can't remember all the story because this book is chock full of stories. But he was there way up at the Lama's eyrie, like the Eagle's Lair, Nagi Gampa, which didn't have a road to it in those days. And, you know, fat Lamas like me used to have servants pushing their asses up the hill. That's what I read in the book. I won't mention the Lama he did name, who was a Tibetan Lama. Fat Lamas like me, and their servants were pushing them up on the muddy hill. Am I exaggerating? That's exactly what you wrote. We're allegedly pushing them up. Is that true? Yes or no? Yes. Thank you. He's a good witness. And so he was up there for, I don't know, days, sleeping in the temple on the straw mat, going to see the Rinpoche whenever he could in his simple room. The Rinpoche had a very simple room there with nothing in it, with a big window for his sky gazing practice or whatever he did, resting in awareness. And when Tuku Sherab Dorje left, this great, marvelous Rinpoche gave the Westerner, I don't remember what stage in his life it was, but certainly he had credit cards and health insurance and a bank account and probably, I don't know what, an inheritance or whatever. And he had, you know, and his international plane tickets and passport, he had American karma. This great Rinpoche gave him 10 rupees, like one of the grandchildren. But, you know, it was like a big allowance, not like 10 paisa for the little children, because he was probably 30 or 40. He gave him 10 whole rupees, which was a lot of money in those days. It could buy you a lot of tea. It was only about half a buck, but whatever. Was it 10 or 20? 10 rupees. And that's not the end of the story. And he told him, this is like a Zen story. We were discussing this at lunch. Why did he tell you this? He said, he told our friend here, you have to spend it before you get down to the refugee town of Bodhanath from this mountain place. So then, from between the mountain place and there was absolutely nowhere to spend the money on anything. That's what we were laughing about. I said, why do you think he gave that to you? It's kind of like a Zen test or something. And so what did he do? So he was being a good boy at heart, being a people pleaser, a disease to please, wanting to serve the Rinpoche. Rinpoche knows, right? The omniscient master knows everything. There's obviously a reason he told me this. I have to spend the money. Otherwise, it would be like stealing. What if I get that all the way to the village and then I spend my 10 rupees on tea and ice cream or something? Bad karma. I have to do what the Rinpoche said. So if I remember, he found some kind of farmer or some villager in their hut or something and made him give him tea, which, of course, this person had never done before, and they probably didn't have any language in common. And this was not like somebody who was selling tea or anything, or a beggar carrying peanuts and tea around in the mountains, like at a sports stadium. And he got the tea, and he gave him the 10 rupees, which was like a month's salary to this villager. And that's how he spent the 10 rupees before he got back to civilization. So that's a true story, allegedly, according to counselor. And we still don't know why Rinpoche asked him to do it that way. Thus, the masters teach us. Thank you. The book is up there. If you want to look at it, please leave it there. We'll see you tonight.